My name is Joe Pagano, and I look after the migration acceleration business development worldwide for AWS and working with many of you in the room today. And we're so excited to be here to share our learnings and experience from helping hundreds of enterprises all around the world accelerate and deliver large-scale migrations as they modernize their businesses on AWS. We're very excited to have with us today Peter Notelaars from AXA. Peter, please. He's going to join us in a few minutes and share the story of how AXA is accelerating their modernization and migration on AWS. So really look forward to that part. And we have Benoit Raquet as well here with us. Welcome, Benoit, who heads our experience-based acceleration area at AWS. So today we're going to focus on three things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to answer the why enterprises are migrating to AWS. And we're going to share some of the dramatic business outcomes that enterprises are achieving when they do large-scale migrations to AWS. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to share the secret sauce, if you will, the methodology, the mechanisms, the processes that we've invented with you and developed to help enterprises do their large-scale migrations by building the case for change, putting together a detailed, comprehensive business plan to make those investments, get approval at the appropriate levels, often the CEO and board level, and then get ready for the migrations. There's a number of things that need to happen to get ready and mobilize. Then we'll take you through the methods and the tooling that we use to actually move workloads into AWS at scale. And then once the workloads are in, some of the best practices around operating into AWS Cloud. So that's a whole second section. We're going to take you through that proven methodology, repeatable approach. And then the third thing we're going to focus on is learning directly from very successful customer AXA and what their best practices were. So what are some of the common drivers that we have that help customers initiate their journey to the cloud and to AWS? We know cost is a very significant driver. How many for you in this room is cost a top driver for going to AWS in the cloud? Right? It's a common theme. I see hands going up there. Cost, we're seeing customers save anywhere between 25 and 50%, sometimes above that, when they go to AWS, when they compare those costs of running on AWS to their on-premises costs. We'll take you through some of those examples. But there are other compelling events. There's end-of-life hardware. There's end-of-life software that drives costs up. There's outsourcing changes. There's objectives around data center consolidation and leases. There's M&A and divestiture. But at the end of the day, cost is just table stakes. Boards of directors are looking for a lot more. They want their businesses to be more agile and move a lot faster than they do today. They want to be able to quickly experiment in the different market segments and invent and create new customer experiences. They want to be able to modernize their operating model, their business, and their culture as they move to AWS. And they want to be able to recover those cost savings and reinvest those in innovation, things that differentiate their business and their customer experiences, so they can get that flywheel effect spinning and then keep building and doing subsequent migration waves to achieve these objectives. So at the end of the day, they end up focusing on three main areas, and we'll bring that back here so you can see it. So the three areas of focus as we help customers build the business plans are that agility, the ability to quickly spin up tens, hundreds, thousands of servers and even applications very quickly, to experiment. Experiments that are successful have to be scaled quickly in minutes and hours. Experiments that aren't as successful can be deprovisioned very quickly at no risk. This is the type of agility our customers want. Operational efficiency will take you through the business planning model. A lot of it's driven by cost savings, but there's also the productivity component. There's the idea of freeing up resources that are working on undifferentiating tasks and areas of the business that are highly skilled and should be reprovisioned to things that matter more for customers. And then there's the idea of reducing operational risk at the board level. How can we increase resiliency? How can we increase failover? You heard Werner talk about security, and everything should be encrypted on his T-shirt. There are business benefits and gains for both businesses and their customers when we can together reduce operational risk. So these are the board level items that we've been addressing with many of you. Let's see if this thing's going to work. All right, a little delay there. So these are some of the direct outcomes that we've measured with a handful of customers. And you could see first on cost. We talked about that being table stakes. But we often see customers saving tens of millions of dollars in their first few years of migrating. That's phenomenal, saving tens of millions of dollars that they could reinvest back in the business. We see data centers being dramatically reduced in size. We'll have some more examples coming up. Consolidated from 56 down to 6 in one case. We have productivity gains. We've had companies double their productivity. It's often that we see companies moving to a DevOps model, and we heard about some of that this morning, and be able to be twice as efficient or greater when they go into a DevOps pipeline and see those productivity gains. Operational resilience, improved uptime, reduced downtime, more nines. In this case, it's 4 nines. Another case, we had a customer get to 5 nines, which is 5.3 minutes of downtime per year for applications. And then, of course, on the agility, we see customers moving 5 to 10 times faster as they deploy new businesses, new applications, and new customer experiences. All right, so this is an example, Mint.com. It's an excellent example of a company that decided to reallocate resources from things that were not as differentiating to the core value prop of their business. In this case, Mint's core value prop is improving the financial lives of their customers. And they had a way, should we become experts in data center management? It's important, but is it the core of our value prop? And the board there decided, no, we want to minimize that kind of activity, and we want to get to what differentiates. So data center management versus improving the financial lives of our customers, it was an easy decision for them. And along the way, they just happened to save 25% out the gate, reinvest that capital into the business. They saw productivity gains on the DBA side, initially of 15% or greater. This failover one is pretty stunning. 30 times improvement in failover. In financial services and in many of your businesses, that means everything to retaining customers and building your brand. From a 30-minute failover to a 1-minute failover. And we'll talk about how we're able to achieve that. And then, of course, deploying things in minutes, hours versus weeks and months, a common theme that we see across many different customers. All right, other customer stories. I mentioned the customer that went from 56 data centers down to 6. And they were able to reallocate $100 million back into their business drivers. At the top of the conversation, I was talking about a customer that did tens of millions in the first few years. This customer did $100 million back in, reinvested that right into the business. Enel, 5,500 virtual machines and servers in 9 months were moved into AWS. 50% of that reduction from storage and 20% on compute. Coca-Cola, more than 600 business workloads in a little bit over a year, and then dramatic improvements in the ability to process those workloads down to seconds from hours, and many, many more examples that we can share. So as we talk to enterprises, to boards of directors, to C-level, to CEOs, and to directors and leaders and architects, we get these questions from all levels of companies that are natural questions to be able to ask. Do I need a business case? I think we've got this. Our CEO has a top-down vision that we're going to cloud, we're going to AWS. Do I really still need a business case? And the answer is yes, you need a business case, because you're always going to want to quantify those benefits, understand how those benefits are unique to you and your business, and to be able to have a more real-time sense versus a directional sense based on the current configuration, the current business models, the current staff productivity levels. So we're going to talk about that. How do I get started? Where do we start? What's the right way to start? How do we operate once we're in the cloud? Do I even know what I have in my environment? And let me ask the audience, how many people feel they have an up-to-date inventory within the last 48 hours? Some of you may, but I'm not seeing very many hands go up. So a lot of our customers say, you know, we've got a CMDB. We can feed it in and start to model and do a business case. But it's really out of date by a couple of months. And that's not good enough in today's environment, especially at the expectation of the board. So we help customers to inventory, understand where they're at, and then what should I move to the cloud? What order should I do it? Should I re-platform this? Should I rehost? Should I refactor? What order should I go in? So these are common questions. And then the final one is, we're not AWS. We're not a technology company. It's easy for you to get up and talk about all these great things, but we just don't have the skills to do it. But it turns out that companies have great talent, and it's a matter of reskilling and sharing best practices and experiences, which is what we're doing right here today. But every large-scale migration, the most important success factor in doing hundreds and hundreds of these over the last 3 years is executive sponsorship. It's the single most important thing. And leadership is what we're talking about here. There are many decisions that need to be navigated across a company, both on the economic side, the culture side, the hiring side, the operating side, the risk operations, the reducing operational risk. There's so many decisions. And then there's the connection with the lines of business and central IT and making sure there's alignment. So strong executive leadership is the most important thing. And Jonathan at Capital One says it well. He goes, this is a function that you just can't delegate, period. If you're not ready to do this, don't move until you have this in place. And it should be somebody senior. It should be somebody who is the CIO, direct report of the CIO. In some cases, it's the CEO. We had an example, which I'll share in a moment, at Live Nation. It was the CEO who was the executive sponsor, and that really helps if you can get that. But it could be anybody in the senior leadership team. So what we've done is we've built this repeatable methodology, this proven approach. It's worked hundreds and hundreds of times. And we're going to share that with you today. And there's 3 main phases. There's an assessment phase. Let's understand what we have today, where we are, what our readiness capabilities are, where we need to invest. Let's do a business case. Let's discover what we really have and have a very accurate view of what we think the returns might be. And let's size this thing up. Let's assess where we are so we could size it up and get ready to put a detailed plan in place. And then that next phase is readiness and planning. That's where we actually do the heavy lifting, the engineering work, the application portfolio analysis, the operating model, building the actual migration plan, creating groups of applications, move groups, in what order based on a business requirement. So that's where the heavy lifting gets done. And then the actual migration itself is the 3rd phase. That's where we actually move things at scale into AWS. And then once they're there, we operate that. So we break it down into simplified phases. We have sets of activities and outcomes associated with each of those phases. So if we start in the assessment phase, one of the things that we do here is a migration readiness assessment workshop. We call it MRA for short. And some of you may have heard of the CAF, Cloud Adoption Framework model, that we have at AWS. It looks at 6 different dimensions. 3 of the dimensions are on the business capability side. The other 3 are on the technical capability side. And on the business capability side, we look at the business. How ready is the business to realize the outcomes that we're trying to achieve at the board level? And what are the business objectives? It always starts with the customer, the business objectives, and we work back from the customer's business objectives. And then we look at people. We look at the roles that are in place, the readiness, even the cultural aspects, and how the place is organized on the technology side and the business side. And we look at the governance, the readiness to govern, not what's there today, but in a cloud world. And on the tech side, we look at platform readiness, both apps and infrastructure, security, and operations. And we have a list. It's a questionnaire of 69 questions. And we get in the room. We do this very quickly. It's often a 4 to 6 hour thing. And what's beautiful about this is we get people in a room that were never in a room together before, both at AWS and at a customer. So we have business leaders come, we have technology leaders come, we have finance people come, CISOs come, whoever we can get who we believe are the right stakeholders with the customer at that point. And we debate for 4 to 6 hours. So it's not AWS filling out a scorecard. It is red, yellow, green across each of these dimensions, each of these questions. We debate with the customer. And we use our experiences from hundreds of migrations to say, here's how we would answer that based on this other pattern that we've seen or experienced, and we come up with a heat map, and it's a board-level report that we put out within a week of doing the workshop, and this has become a best practice because it informs the areas that needed to be invested in from a readiness standpoint to be successful in achieving those business outcomes. The second thing we do in the assessment phase is we apply tooling, and tooling that helps us understand the current environment in great detail. So we're super excited. I think TSO is in the room today. They're now in the AWS family. So AWS acquired TSO, and TSO has a number of tools, but the one we use the most here is the data collector tool. It's an agentless tool. So you might say, hey, that's going to be tough. We can't get it through SecArc. It's going to delay things by 8 weeks. That's true with some other tools, but this one is agentless. We put it in one VM. It studies the environment. We like to run it anywhere from 10 to 30 days, so we get a real good snapshot. And it looks at all of the servers, and it also looks at CPU. What is the real utilization? What are the peaks? What are the averages? It looks at disk, and it looks at memory. And part of the way we're able to get these 30 to 50% savings is we right size. We look for waste in the existing environment where we've done too much CPU, or maybe we put more memory than we need. Maybe we put 4 gigs when we needed 2. So we can study that and understand that and then have an optimized architecture recommendation right from the tool. So tool will do the discovery. Data comes in through the collector. The second part of this tool is the analysis tool. And if you happen for some reason not to be able to run the collector, we can feed in your own data sets in CMDB and do that same kind of analysis. But we prefer to get the real-time snapshot and do that analysis. TSO has also done a study across 100,000 OS instances and 20 enterprises. And the average savings out of the box in that study was 36%, just using one technique, right sizing. And there's many other optimizations that we could do on the architecture side. There's optimizations we could do on the financial instrument size with spot pricing, with reserved instances. And this is how you see people get a multiple on the additional savings that they can get. The TSO tool also helps you optimize your Microsoft and SQL Server licensing and make recommendations on how you could save money there. So very important tool that we bring in. And once we have that data and we've done the MRA assessment, we begin to build a detailed business case in some cases where companies need that, but most often it's a directional business case that uses data specific to an enterprise. And we build this business case and storyline, if you will, across 4 business value driver areas. The first is cost savings. Okay, we talked a little bit about this, cost savings. There are many ways to do this. We talked about right sizing, architectural optimization, financial instruments that we can use, avoiding end-of-life and maintenance, renewals, and data center leases. So there's many ways that we can drive the cost savings and quantify that. Productivity gains, mainly through automation, avoiding wait times for provisioning infrastructure, and not to mention the fact that we've got 165 services that are pre-built. We've got automation scripts that are pre-built, things that companies had to do themselves, and some are still doing it. And there's no need to reinvent the wheel on much of what needs to be done to build modern applications, as you've heard this morning. So productivity is another area we'll quantify in the business case. Operational resilience, again, reducing operational risk, driving cost avoidance by having better uptime and better security and better operations and failover. In business agility, of course, is getting to your market segment, getting to your customers a lot faster, and increasing the speed at which you can experiment and take care of business things that come up. These cost objectives or the M&A objective or regulatory objective, the ability to move a lot faster, experiment, helps you reduce cost and increase revenue in many cases. So Live Nation. This is the world's largest live entertainment company. Many of us in the room are customers of Live Nation. More than $10 billion in revenue, 40 countries. They do 500 million tickets per year, 30,000 events. This is one where the CEO in 2015 was the sponsor. Said, you know what, we're going to modernize, we're going to the cloud, we're going to AWS. Let's figure it out. Let's get out of our comfort zone. This is an excellent example of where we had that leadership from directly the top, the CEO and the board. They moved 118 apps in 17 months with 668 servers. And they got 90% of this done within the first 12 months. Some customers initially, when they're starting out, think, hey, this is going to take years and years, but you can actually do it quickly if you follow this methodology. And they instantly got 18% on the on-prem comparison, but with optimizations, as we've been talking about, and the different architectural and right sizing and using reserved instances, they were able to get another 40% savings. So 58% savings, completely fund the transformation and modernization, 50% reduction in IT ops tasks. This is the customer I mentioned earlier. They got 5 nines, 5.3 minutes of downtime per year or better, and they increased their ability to innovate by 10 times. So very tangible outcomes that can be achieved and fairly quickly. So all of those things we've discussed so far, right, Benoit, that was the assessment phase. We haven't gotten to building the actual plan and engineering it. That comes in the next phase here. And it's just an example of what we work with customers on in this particular phase. We've got a suite of tools that we can apply automation. We talked about TSO. There are other tools that customers want us to bring in sometimes with partners that can go deep on dependencies of data and application dependencies. And on the data side, it's not just where the data is. It's very important, how it's secured, how it's federated. How do we need to drive that to a new level of architecture and compliance and security? There's also operations data about the data that becomes important, the metadata, the ability to control and adapt the data as it grows and understand the different engineering metrics around it. So we help do all of that. We look at each and every application, and then we run it through the 7 Rs. Is this application a candidate for refactor? Should it be a 2-step? Should we rehost and then refactor? What's the mix of these Rs? Should we re-platform? Does it make sense? Are there returns on going to an open source database platform like Aurora? And often there are. And then what we would do is help logically group these applications, put them into move groups. And what we don't want to do is try to solve the entire company in one shot. And Peter's going to talk about that. Yesterday we're prepping, and Peter's like, no, we were going over this slide. He's like, you can't do it all in one clip. You'll fail us too much. You have to do it in small incremental pieces. So we say, we like the idea of let's do one in a row. Right? Let's do one app, then we'll do the next app. Or let's do the first way, something that's achievable to build the confidence in the muscle. Right? So this is some of the methodology and detail work that gets done there. And then we come to the people and the organizational models that we found very successful patterns in these hundreds of other migrations. We first start with a foundation team the first 0 to 6 months. We have a clear leader that has responsibility for the success of moving the first applications in. The teams treated migration as if it's a product. A product, it's got a brand, it's got an objective, it's got a support model. It's got user acceptance testing, right? It's got iteration. Think of it as a product development. We have financial folks that come in and help figure out the cost model and the chargeback models that might have to take place. What has to be done in terms of enablement and organizational change, and how can our architects and engineers be embedded in that business planning team from day one? And then as workloads scale, we just simply take that foundation team and begin to scale it and dedicate part of it to a business office, another part of it to an engineering office. And then as we get to the 1-year mark, we can further subdivide. And one of the best practices that we learned was on the engineering side is initially we would have teams that would be experts on the platform, another team that would be an operations team, another team that would be a security team. They meet 3 or 4 times a year. And we learned that those functions need to be embedded from the start, right? We need to have these cross-discipline teams available and working together, and then scale as we have success. And then for landing zones, Control Tower is now available. This is a very useful tool if you're setting up multiple accounts in your environment. It helps you govern the accounts, secure them, and it's based on best practices from thousands of other customers. And one of the main advantages here is that you can define your compliance and security policies and profiles and then automate the creation and management and governance of the entire landing zone architecture, and then make adjustments and iterate and improve as you go. So something that was manual before and took many days and weeks of labor can now be done automatically. In a few clicks, you can get started. So I encourage you to follow up and have a look at Control Tower. And then the final phase here is the actual migration. And happy to share, as many of you know, that in the migration phase, we've acquired Cloud Endure. So Cloud Endure is now under the umbrella of AWS. And Cloud Endure helps you automate the staging of workloads. You can do dozens or even hundreds of virtual machines and physical machines as you need, and automate the provisioning and deployment and production and the testing of that through an enterprise tool that used to retail at $399 per server. And guess what? It's no cost for all of you in the room. So any AWS customer can get access to Cloud Endure. And also, those who are embarking on large-scale migrations can get access to TSO at no cost. So please take advantage of that technology. And then finally, once workloads are in the cloud, we've got different options for how to operate. We've got the self-managed options and a suite of tools some of you are familiar with, the ability to create your own catalog of services and have governance and security around that, have systems management automation, or you can do a combination of that and use AWS managed services. We've got more than 40 curated services. We can manage AWS assets and non-AWS assets and do that on your behalf. And how can that accelerate things? It offloads management tasks that you might otherwise try to do yourself, so you can focus on speeding up the application side and get more scale and speed out of your large-scale migration. And of course, there's more than 100 different partners to choose from in terms of managed services providers. And again, any combination of these models would work. So I'm going to bring up Benoit, and he's going to talk about the approach that we take to modernization. So welcome, Benoit.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. So it's very important for me to be here because I am sure that a lot of the concepts that have been presented before really resonate with you. Understanding what others have already been doing and what is the art of the possible once you get on the platform is really appealing. You're not short of ideas, and there, as this slide presents, different value that you can get. You can go from the real immediate benefits of moving your application on AWS, and you get immediately just a better availability, better security mechanisms. You get all those immediate benefits, and we see most of the customer getting value from starting there and then evolving their application, moving to AWS native services. An example of that is you can have like a sidecar usage of an application. For example, that's the drawing in the middle. You can have a web-facing application, and that application needs a Google-like type of search, but the application developers are not comfortable to change the application. You can actually have a side function that is going to do the query, and they don't need to rewrite the application, and then you have your solution available. Another one is when you move your monolithic applications, you can also take advantage of what Werner explained earlier in the keynote, which is give the possibility of your developers to use microservices. You don't have to provision infrastructure. It's not additional cost, but they can experiment with what's possible without breaking the monolith. And it allows you to simplify over time the architecture. So I'm sure you have other ideas, and the reason why you're in this room is probably because all of those concepts are appealing to you. You probably already are in the middle of those, or would like to be challenged yourself about what exactly can I do when I go back to my work tomorrow? What will I learn from this session in terms of not just having the good ideas, but actually how will you use that in your day-to-day job, either with your leadership or with your team? And so we wanted to have a second half of this presentation, which actually is really specific, not just about giving the ideas, but actually really changing the way you work. And what is the story when a customer is going through those processes? What are the obstacles? What are the learnings? And then how can we make it a repeatable process so that you can learn and be faster, because it doesn't have to take 18 months for a journey to happen. When you go after it the right way, you can get much faster results. And so for being more specific about that, I will welcome Peter Notelaars from AXA Belgium, who is going to share with you his story and the story of how AXA Belgium is now moving to cloud. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks, Benoit. So thank you for having me. I'm Peter Notelaars. I'm responsible within AXA Belgium to bring our company to the cloud. Who of you guys have already migrated applications to the cloud? So I see some hands. Who wanted to speed up, accelerate the process? Do more and do faster. Okay. This slide is just a corporate brand slide of AXA Belgium, but I think it resiliates a lot of what we are doing with the experience-based accelerators, which we do together with AWS. So there are three main characteristics I see. First of all, I see a little kid jumping in the swimming pool. It's what we do when we do an actual experience-based accelerator migration. We actually do something. We experience something. Then I see that the kit is supported by what they just taught me is a floaty. So the kit is supported, and we are supported by the AWS team when we do those migrations. And third, I see that the kid is having fun. And when we do the accelerators, we have a lot of fun. The main message of the slide is, at the end, you have to jump to get the experience.
All right.
So,
Well done.
just some boring part, the key figures about our company, AXA. So AXA is what we call financial protection company, which was founded in the 80s, and through mergers and acquisitions, we become one of the market leaders in financial protection today. When the AWS team came to Belgium the first time explaining me about the EBAs, I was like, okay, yeah, that is nice. That's another company telling me how we should do our job and so on. And, but I accepted the challenge. And soon I saw that those EBAs, in fact, it was not only a change management initiative, it was what I thought at first. I use it as a change management thing in our company. But I soon realized when we were doing it that it was really an enabler to bring our IT staff, but our enterprise to the cloud. And that was very important. By doing it, we accelerate the learning and the enabling of the public cloud. How do we do it? It's based on real experiences. It is not about reading books. It is not about slides. It is not about presentations. It is really taking the stuff and doing it. In fact, what we do, the 4 steps Joe presented, step 1 and 2, we do it in, let's say, 1 step. And it's what we call the preparation step. In the preparation step, we define what are we going to do. We align a technical scope. We do the architect for the cloud. We architect the application for the cloud. Very important, we identify all stakeholders which we require to do the actual migration. And that is quite a list. From an IT perspective, we easily reduce the list just with the people we think, okay, they will help us in day one to move forward, but you need to think a bit broader. And then we list what are the requirements and what are the things we can already solve upfront so that we are ready for the second step. The second step, very important in step one, before I forget, very important in step one is that you come to an agreed and a committed scope. Everybody around the table needs to commit that this is what we are going to do in the migration. If you fail there, step two will fail. Step two, implementation. We set up what we call the foundation, the platform. We build and engineer the application for the cloud. We do the integration of the different services. We do the automation so that the life cycling of the application can happen in the cloud, as well from an application as an infrastructure perspective. And we put in place all the security controls. A very nice example for this was in one of the first EBAs, I was stretching the delegate of our CISO a bit too far, and at one stage we were like nose on nose. And he said, Peter, you're crazy, and you go too far, and I'm out of my comfort zone. And he left the room. And a couple of hours later, he came back, and we showed him what in the meantime we were presenting to his team. What are the abilities AWS offers you to get control of the security? And the guy was delighted. Today, he is our biggest fan. So he tells everybody, at least now today, I have a view on what is happening, what is going on. Important for stage two, stick to the agreed and committed scope. What we saw is that engineers probably get access to all the different services delivered by AWS, and they start dreaming. And they drift off, and you can end up somewhere where you didn't want to be. So stick to the committed scope, and really, yeah. We had, in one of the first EBAs we did, one team managed to discuss during half a day on which containerization platform they would use. We lost half a day. So if it's decided in the preparation, you stick to it. Third part, optimize. Optimize, we do performance optimization. We monitor everything, and we check how can we get the best value for money, how can we be cost efficient, and then we improve also our foundation. Why is this very important? In a discussion with our CEO, he told me, yeah, Peter, you are now really becoming a pain for me with this entire cloud story, and I will tell you, we've been working on our applications for years. They are performant now. You will move them, and afterwards they will not be performant. I said, Jeff, but hey, it's cloud, it's elastic, it's high available. He says, yeah, and it will cost me a lot of money. So I had really to convince him that now we are able to compare the cost of the service with the performance. And this is where we decided to give the keys to the real business, and they decide. They have a view on the cost, they have a view on the performance, and they decide when they go and at which cost they go. I can tell you the CEO was delighted about that message that he could decide. How do we set it up? How do we work? So we have in AXA, we are doing a kind of consolidation of IT where we say, we are in one team IT. So we have the IT of AXA Belgium, but also what we call group operations, which is our cloud broker and infrastructure provider, and then the team of AWS. We have one common goal. We create a backlog, and this backlog we execute. We put all the people together in one big room, and this really facilitates collaboration. You cannot avoid to speak to each other. And then we have some people of AWS who are a bit pushy and who push our people to what is nearly in their comfort zone, I would say. So then, what is very important, we agree on a time slot in which we do the migration. This really creates a sense of urgency. Everybody needs to move on. It's not like normally we do IT and yeah, we send an email and then we lay back for a couple of weeks to get an answer. You have 3 days, you achieve it, everybody is in the room, make it happen. We divide in several sprint teams, so there is a team working on the application, there is a team working on the platform, automation, security, and there is even a team working on operations and people. So what will be the impact on the people? What will be the operational impact of doing this? We do it in what we call extreme agile methodology, meaning that during the 3 days at noon, we have a stand-up, and in the evening, because a lot of times it's till the evening, and afterwards we have a beer. That's the nice part of it. And we do each time a stand-up where everybody presents what they've done, and during the days, all the successes are celebrated with small bell rings. The most important thing is people skills and positive mindset. I'll give a short example on that. In one of the first workshops, some guys come to me and they say, Peter, we have a problem with the IT automation team. So the team responsible for the releases and the release tools and so on, the CI/CD tools. I say, okay, I will listen what is going on. And I heard them saying, yeah, but this doesn't work with our current tooling, and what do they think they are doing? They should follow the company standards. So after 1 hour, I stopped everything, and I asked everybody who does not want to change, who is not open for change, can you please leave the meeting room now? No one left, and we went like a train. So that is just an example on what you need to do. The collaboration between all the people is very important. When we are doing it, we have a collaboration from ops engineers to people from finance, IT architects, the COE of cloud, which is a team of the AXA group, security, IT automation, and so on. It's very important. It is mandatory to do this. Like I said before, in a lot of cases, you will not invite all those people, but some teams, you require them today because they are part of the solution. And some teams should be there because they are a potential blocker tomorrow because they are not aware of what was going on. So bring all those people together, invite them. In the beginning, some teams didn't or show up. What we did then is that I changed and we didn't go into a meeting room, but we went into the enterprise restaurant. And so everybody saw us sitting there and working, and everybody became curious and they came watching, and the next time everybody joins and is in the loop. We also use the EBAs as a lever to implement what we call new way of delivery. A new way of delivery, in fact, It is a customized version we built at AXA of doing scaled agile delivery. And how do we do that? First of all, when we do the preparation, we bring all those people together. The ops are there. They are coming from operations. We bring them in the room. The developers are there. The security people are there. They start working together. They prepare. They think about functional, operational, and security requirements when they build a solution. They're all there. Everybody can give his requirements, put his requirements on the table. During the migration workshop, they commonly build assets. And they work really closely together. And then at the end, when we put the application in production, we just move the ops people to the development team and they stay there. So gradually we are emptying our operational teams while we are migrating the applications to the cloud. Something what is, to respond to the question of our CEO, something what is very important around the financial management and financial governance. So during the preparation, we architect for the cloud and we make sure that we do cost-efficient things. During the implementation, we apply all the best practices where AWS has plenty of guidelines and things on it. We have automated tagging so that we are able, by tagging, to operate the application, but that we also have financial control and so on. And then we organize, during the 3 days, we organize a session with the financial responsibles of that application, being the application lead, the feature manager, being someone of finance, and so on. And we show them. We show them, listen, guys, these are the tags we have implemented. Do you feel fine with this? This is what you see now in the dashboard. This is what we are consuming. And this is what you can do with it. And then, again, we hand over the keys to the business, and they can decide. They have all the metrics. They have all the parameters. They can decide at which cost they want to go to the cloud. At the end of each EBA, we build a dashboard. And the first thing, because we are pushing some people sometimes a bit either out of their comfort zone or just at the boundary. So I want to make sure that the next time there are still people participating, we ask them, how do they feel? And this is real data. So out of the 30 people who were working in the EBA, 25 said, this was really a cool experience, and next week we want to come back. There are always 5 people who we maybe pushed a bit too far, but who say, yeah, but we expected a bit different, but overall they're cool. In this EBA in April, we thought that we would, or we had to achieve, it's something I learned from the American guys from AWS, big tickets. We wanted to achieve 16 big tickets. We did 12. So it's really components of the application which we moved to the cloud. Can be, for instance, migrate your Oracle database to PostgreSQL. And we did build 5 what we call landing zone features. It is, for instance, create a CloudFormation script to initiate that database, or create a CloudFormation script to implement a proxy gateway in the cloud. And then the more important thing, then we do with the application teams, we say, okay, where are you today now? After the 3 days, what did you achieve? In this one, the first team, and that is maybe something which I didn't told before, but which I have to say, we are not only doing migrations using the EBA, we are doing innovation. Because the two AI solutions, it was brand new. It was with the data team. They joined us, the data lab team, and they built really a solution in 3 days. And so the first team, AI recours. Recours is the French word. Benoit, for what is the French word? I don't know. For what is it?
Claims.
Yeah, so for claims. And they told us we achieved 80% of the final solution. And then we asked them, what would it take you more to be at 100%? The team answered us, 2 days. So 2 more days development, 2 more days collaboration, and we're there. Then we had a team working on Smart Mail, so an AI solution which is just reviewing mails and triaging them and so on. And those guys, they said, yeah, okay, we are ready. We can go to our boss and tell him we can go tomorrow. And then we had one application, and it's not just an application, it's really like a business process which we wanted to do, because most of the time when we decide the scope, we try to take a business process, and that was expected reaction management. And those guys said we are at 80%, but Thursday evening, Friday morning, they call us and they say we are 100%. There was just one token in our application which wasn't set right, and now we are good, and we are at 100%. This is a testimony of one of our data lab members. I hope I helped you a bit. I inspired a bit what you can do with the EBAs, and I give the word back to Joe.
Thank you so much. Really love the story, and so glad that you and AXA jumped in the pool. That was a great metaphor. So again, there's nothing like hearing from a peer customer on how they approach the large-scale migration opportunity, but you heard the connection to innovation. Migration funds innovation. It creates change within an organization, helps modernize an organization. So that's a key theme that comes out. And these are the questions that we teed off with that we often get at the beginning of engaging on the large-scale migration opportunity. We've addressed a lot of these, in fact, probably all of them today. And there's many more questions that continue to come up. But what you've heard about today is any question that you might have has an answer to it, and it has an answer very specific to you and your customers, and we're here with our partners to help you engage and get these questions answered. So why AWS? Well, today we have heard about a proven approach and methodology where we've broken this transformation, modernization, large-scale migration opportunity into consumable phases. And we've learned from hundreds and hundreds of customer implementations to date, and we've re-engineered those learnings back to best practices and to tools and to automation. So that's number one. And number two, AWS has the most functionality of any provider in the world by far, and we continue to add to that and add new innovations and automations all the time. In fact, last year it was something like 1,957 new capabilities and features were released just in 2018 alone. We've got the largest and most vibrant community of customers and partners. We innovate at the fastest clip, and we have the most operational and security experience, bar none. We've been doing this for 6 or 7 years longer than anyone else. We've been doing this for about 12 years total. IDC did a study recently looking at customers that moved to AWS, and they said that on average there's 94% less downtime. So we heard some stories about being more secure and more resilient in AWS versus on-prem. And our cloud economics team, they're in the room here. There was a benchmark study that was done that showed that 36% less security incidents when people move to AWS versus what they had on-prem. We've got more than 40 certified APN partners on migration that are ready to go, and they have their own processes and tools that they can bring in, building on top of what AWS provides. And if you have a partner that you want to work with that's not on this list, but they're instrumental to your success, we'll embrace those partners and help them get their migration certification. All right, and what is the go-do list? We always have to have an action list. So these are the 5 things that we're going to recommend here. Is number 1, if you don't have that executive champion or leadership, that's the most important thing. We're happy to come in with our partners and help get that established and tell the stories of how other customers had done that themselves. Engage your AWS account team on the business case and on the readiness methodology and workshop. We're happy to come in and help there. Identify that first application. Maybe it's a group of applications or workloads, and if it's only one, that's okay. Get to one in a row. Build the confidence, build the muscle. We'll help you do that as well. Create that cloud foundation team and take this back, what you heard today from AXA and from us on the roles that are instrumental in building that initial team, and then take full advantage of the wealth of training that's available to you as an AWS customer. Here's our contact information, so we'd love to hear from you. Myself, Peter, and Benoit. We will meet with you after the session if you have any questions after the session. And these are the sessions we would recommend. So if you're down the modernization track, the transformation track, migration, please take a quick shot of this screen. And these are some of the related sessions that we recommend that you go see. I'll just keep that up there for a quick minute. And then we encourage you to take the survey. We're a company that thrives on feedback and data. Here's a sampling of customers who have taken the journey on AWS. And thank you so much for coming out today. Really appreciate your time and support of AWS. Thank you so much.